media.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Time for city politics again, civic politics, and one that I think is a big issue, especially if you project it Canada wide. If you look at the fact, I say anytime any city, whether it's Calgary, whether it's Regina, whether it's Montreal, if they do things within their municipalities that are corrupt, if they do things that stretch the boundaries of what's right and what's wrong, we see it kind of bleed out, so to speak, when it gets into our provincial and our federal politics. And the longer that these politicians behave this way, the worse off we're all going to be. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Calgary's blanket rezoning that was pushed through this week and why it's such a bad issue. And again, where this could be potentially bad moving forward for citizens. We've often seen in municipalities that housing has become a very large issue. It's one of Pierre Poilievre's main points on his campaign trail to get homes built and affordable homes built. When you talk about blanket rezoning, essentially what that means is that property owners are able to bulldoze their homes, a single family dwelling, so to speak, maybe like a bungalow, and they are able to sometimes build up to a fourplex on top of it. And people are going to say to me, well, Derek, that's great. That's 4 more units for people to live in. The problem there is that cities and municipalities usually give out permits for those things. The permits are distributed only so many per year, just like the issues with the red tape with building new homes that we have. And now the city has essentially left the door wide open, saying that anybody who wants to do that can now do so. And the problem that we see with that is the same problem we hear anytime they talk about we're going to build affordable housing, we're going to put in new units for everyone to live in. This isn't cheaper housing. This isn't more affordable housing. This is housing for the rich to profit off of. This is existing property owners bulldozing their properties and essentially quadrupling their net worth. It's been happening in Calgary for decades. We've seen it in older areas where they demolish a house, sometimes build 2 skinnier, smaller homes, luxury style on the property. And again, the owners will sell the house next door, live in the one opposite. And again, people have a right to make money and pay off their mortgages. But the problem when we talk about affordability in this town is it's mostly land developers that are taking the benefits. And Danielle Smith has even chimed in. I'm going to show you this little clip of her talking about why she's concerned, and then get into what happens next for Calgary and why this could be damaging for people moving forward.
I've been watching this because it was a process that was started under the prior mayor and became pretty controversial. And I believe it was called the Community Guide or something at the time, and became something that I believe that residents of Calgary weighed in on in the last election. What had me concerned is that it seemed like the resurgence of this was tied to a bilateral deal that the city of Calgary signed with the federal government. Of course, it's emerged, it's a little bit murky. It's first, seems like the federal government said, yes, they need to make these changes. And then it sounded like the municipality said, no, we've got the authority to, and there's no tie to the money. I don't know what the real answer is there, but it does concern me if municipalities feel that they have pressure from the federal government to change their policies in order to get a couple $100 million. That's part of the reason why we've brought in Bill 18, because we want to be able to be the advocate for all of our municipalities so that they don't feel like they have to be pressured into passing policies that will likely get some of them unelected in the next election, and will allow for us to be able to be that shield. So not only can we negotiate with the federal government, something that is fair, but also so that we can make sure that all of those dollars are going to each municipality. So I don't quite know how this is going to turn out for the various members who voted the way they did. I've seen the polling of on some of those ridings, just like anyone else has. But it does seem to me that is, there's an election about 1.5 years away. So I guess we'll see whether or not there's widespread acceptance then. I'm so concerned about it that we're putting forward legislation very similar to what Quebec has put through, which would obligate the federal government to work with us when they're looking at funding various joint initiatives, because we believe that we would then have the clout at the bargaining table to be able to say certain things are on and certain things are off. And so I think any of these negotiations are important for the federal government to meet its targets, but also for the provincial government to be able to meet its targets and take care of all of our municipalities. So if it is the case that the council members felt that somehow that money would be at risk if they didn't make the kind of changes that they did, then that's very concerning, because the federal government should not dictate what municipal policy should be. The municipalities under our constitution remain the sole authority of the provincial government. We're the ones who passed the Municipal Government Act and give them the authorities that they do have. So yeah, I would say I am concerned if that's the case, but I guess we'll see what happens in the next election about how comfortable Calgarians are with the decisions that were made.
Now, when Danielle raises those amazing and very important points about why this is such a negative thing, I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of a secret here. I want you to come a little bit closer so I can tell you the reality here. No politician ever implements policy in order to benefit its citizens. It is always to benefit themselves. It is always to benefit those special interest groups that are tied to their wallets, that are tied to their friends. This is nothing more than a get-rich-quick scheme, ladies and gentlemen. If you really wanted to do something about the housing, you'd do what Pierre's proposing and remove the red tape. You would essentially allow builders to build more homes. Supply and demand is the big thing, and people are once again going to jump in. Derek, they're building fourplexes. This is supply for people. The problem is, it's not homes that are going to be sold. These are homes that are going to be rental units. They are going to be put up and gouged to the nearest consumer, the nearest person seeking rental in Calgary, to say, hey, you know what? I've got my bungalow that was paid off on this property. I'm going to bulldoze it. I'm going to build 4 more units on top of it and essentially just rake in the cash every month while taking advantage of the current market of Calgary by bleeding its citizens dry, making life remaining to be unaffordable. And the problem here is that they don't need those permits in order to do so. But do you know what you do need permits for in Calgary? Anytime you're going to add to your property, anytime you're going to put a structure on your property, even when I wanted to put my gazebo on my property or a hot tub on the property, you have to get those permits so that the city of Calgary can essentially raise your property taxes. And that is, again, they want to squash the citizen while propping up those who are elite, who are rich, who have properties that can do these things. Essentially just keep the money train coming in. But one thing that Danielle Smith mentions that is the key to this is, again, while she says pressure from the federal government to meet targets in order to get federal funding, the carrot on the stick has never been a good thing. We've seen Justin Trudeau coming into Alberta and undermining the premier several times by giving promises to municipalities without even consulting with the province before coming in, or even letting them know he was going to be here to hand out those deals. I've often said it's reminiscent of the divorcee parent who comes over, buys their kids a bunch of expensive things, and then leaves, making the other parent look terrible. This is what Justin Trudeau ultimately is doing. Now, it's important to point out as well that while Danielle Smith talks about elections, which yours truly is going to be running in this next year and a half, is that roughly 700 people went to City Hall to speak out against blanket rezoning. They don't want it. Citizens are upset with it. They're furious. They don't want. They know if they follow the money, what this means for Calgary. They know that this is destructive. And again, if cities like Calgary take that carrot on the stick, put these things through, how long before it branches out to other municipalities that this is okay to do? They completely ignored citizens. And again, because this doesn't benefit the citizens. Jyoti Gondek, the failed woke mayor of Calgary, sees its citizens as faceless. She does not give a darn what she's doing to its citizens. But let's take a look at, they approved the rezoning, so what happens next? Calgary City Council approved to amend the version of the blanket rezoning proposal Tuesday night, ushering in a new approach of housing redevelopment and densification of the city. The 9-6 vote, which capped off a 16-day public hearing and council meeting that began April 22nd, will change Calgary's base residential rezoning district to residential grade oriented infill, more commonly referred to as RCG. It means single family detached homeowners can redevelop their property into other low density housing forms, kind of like farms, including duplexes, fourplexes, and row houses, without first needing to apply for a land use redesignation. The zoning will be in effect citywide as of August 6th, according to City News release. While the municipality can accept development applications for newly rezoned properties immediately, decisions on applications won't be made until after the implementation date. Administration projected that having RCG as a base residential district will generate an additional 250 properties redeveloping to row houses per year, translating into approximately 750 net new additional homes annually. I'm not interested in making things bigger and better in terms of row houses. Row houses are turning us into Toronto. They're turning us into overpriced cesspools of real estate, and times where when they talk about a correction in housing right now, the biggest correction you're going to see when that bubble bursts, not if but when, is going to be in cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, where the housing is ridiculously overinflated. The problem right now isn't the housing. I've said it a million times over. The problem in this country right now is the barrages of immigration that we are bringing into this country. We need to start telling people to go home. Get out, go back. You're done. We don't want any more. No mas. We need to handle our own issues first. I understand people saying, look, we want better lives for people. We want better opportunities. We're not giving it. They're coming over here and essentially bringing their problems here because we don't have the resources to compete with mass inflation and colonization of Canada. That's the polite way of putting it. And unfortunately, if I want to stay relevant on this platform, I got to play ball. Amendments are focused on consultation privacy. So it says council also voted on a slate of amendments to the proposal on Monday and Tuesday, rejecting most but approving several. One of the biggest changes from administration's original proposal was to list row houses as a discretionary use rather than a permitted use. This means that row house applications would need to be reviewed and evaluated against various factors, and their development permits would be subject to neighbors' scrutiny, according to the city. Again, these are fancy little pony shows that are put in just to make people think they have some form of protection. Follow the money, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I was talking about when you see these houses going in on properties. There's areas in Calgary that are like Killarney in the southwest where many older bungalows residences have been demolished, and this has been the norm. Again, only certain permits go out for that. Only so many permits a year were going out for that. But now it's open season. Among the amendments supported was a proposal from Councillor Courtney Penner to utilize or leverage a working group to find efficiencies in the development permit process. A similar supported amendment was pitched by Councillor Evan Spencer to create a more robust engagement process for discretionary uses in land use district. He said that the amendment's aim was to find ways to incentivize conversations between applicants and community members. Again, they're concerned about people having a voice. Some are, at least. Some councillors. Again, this was a 9-6 vote. While many of the proposed amendments saw an 8-7 or 9-6 vote split, there were a few moments on consensus. One example of a unanimously supported amendment was from Councillor Sonia Sharp to ask administration to address issues related to privacy for adjacent neighbors. Again, if you look at new houses going in right now, there's certain restrictions on how close houses can be. But I can tell you right now that some of these houses, you can actually stand between them and span your arms and touch both homes. That's dangerous, especially if a fire breaks out. Councillor Dan McLean said he was disappointed by the result, but not surprised, and hinted that blanket rezoning will likely be a key election issue among candidates in 2025. Again, you had 70% of the city surveyed that said they don't want this. You had over 700 people show up in a public hearing to give their dismays, to talk about their grievances as to why they don't want this in the city and how detrimentally bad this is for the city. But once again, council undermining the province, undermining the voters, the citizens, and just doing whatever they like. And I can tell you right now, it will be an election issue. It will be something I'm running on. It will be something that I am bringing up and fighting against. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think this is going to span out to other cities? Do you think that the more we take this carrot on the stick from the federal government, the more we're going to see cities bending their will in order to line their pockets? Let me know what you guys think down below. Again, if it's your first time here to the channel, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're clicking that button below, you're hitting the bell for notification. Join me live here on the channel every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central for Friday Night Fringe, where we go over a lot of what we just talked about, as well as other issues in politics spanning the country. I always look forward to hearing what you guys have to say outside of making these videos, and it is the highlight of my week to come in and sit with each and every one of you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.